coming with two teams from two branches of the Office of the Premier. One is coming from the stakeholder coordination branch, which is led by DDG Katide, and the other one is led by Dr. Fikile Ndlovu, which is strategic management. May I request a chairperson through you that the team from DDG Ndlovu, strategic management branch, do the presentation on the draft 2021 provincial growth development plan strategy review. I will hand over, if I'm allowed, to the colleagues that are delegated by Dr. Fikile Ndlovu. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. The team can proceed with presentation, but they must be cautious of time. Just focus on salient points of your presentation.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm Ashika Singh. I'm representing the Office of the Premier today from the PGDP team. And Chair, I must also then introduce the Chairperson of the Provincial Planning Commission, Mr. Masiwa. I'm hoping that he's still on. He's traveling from East London, so he has some connection issues. But Chair, I'm also accompanied by Ms. Marty Milne, who is the Chief Director in the Planning Unit, as well as Dawn Dorning, who is also part of the Secretariat for the PPC. So Chair, without any further introductions, I will continue with the presentation, and taking cognizance of the time, we can move to slide 2. And Chair, this whole presentation is centered around the issue of the review of the provincial growth and development strategy. And this is a review that has been called by the Provincial Planning Commission. And if we move then very quickly to slide, I think if we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so I'm just going to very briefly concentrate on what the issues that we are using that will guide the review, the draft outline of the PGDS itself and the progress that we have made so far, as well as the high-level process plan. And this is really for noting. But Chair, our focus here today is to hear and is to engage with all our stakeholders, and this is part of that stakeholder engagement. We want to hear the critical strategic issues that we need to include in the PGDS that will help us to ensure the growth of KZN. So that is our main focus for this engagement with, the very critical role players who are in this meeting today. So the last review of the PGDS happened in 2016, and as we know, a strategy runs within a 5-year period, and it was now the Commission said to us it's time now for the PGDS to be reviewed, and therefore we find ourselves in this process. And if we move on to the next slide, please. And I think that I don't have to tell anyone in this meeting what the PGDS is, but just to very briefly say, it is the strategy that will guide the growth for this province. And again, colleagues, we must emphasize that the strategy is not an OTP strategy, it is not a government strategy, but it is a provincial strategy. And we stress that word because we want to ensure that all role players are on board, whether they're in the private sector, the public sector, etc. We are all one, and we are all working towards the same aim, which is the growth of this province. Chair, I think that what we need to look at, as I was saying, is the critical issues we need to include in the PGDS for KZN. And we also then want to understand what are those proposed interventions that we need to include and who needs to be involved, and how can we improve on the implementation and monitoring of the PGDS. So I think that as very important stakeholders, we often get told we don't know what the PGDS is, or we don't know what it's meant to do, or it's not doing what it's supposed to do. So this is the opportunity for everyone to get involved and tell us, what are your views and how do you think we should be doing it? We can move to the next slide. Chair, again, this is just a very a slide that's just guiding how we undertook the review, and I don't want to go through everything. The presentation has been made available, and colleagues can engage with it at their leisure and come back to us if there are any points in the presentation that they would require any further clarity on. But just to highlight that we're now in the progress of stakeholder engagement, and that's what we're all doing here today. Colleagues, I'm going to skip slides 8 and I think also slide 9. That's just for information. We can then go straight, I think, let us move straight to, I think for the purposes of this presentation, can we go to slide 12? So here, colleagues, what we want to emphasize is that the PGDS, as you see, it is an all-encompassing document. So when we say that, what do we mean? The PGDS is not developed in isolation to any plan that exists in the world or in the guiding plans that exist for the country or in the world. So what we do is we take into account the Sustainable Development Goals. We take into account the AU agenda, etc. And more than that, all colleagues will know that the national government introduced a national MTSF. So we all know about the NDP, the National Development Plan. And then what they did was they developed a 5-year implementation for that NDP, and that's the MTSF, right? So we have been working on that in the meantime through the PGDP stroke KZN MTSF. But now we need to ensure that our strategy is also in line with that, the national MTSF. And you can be assured that as we go through this presentation, you will see that we are very much in alignment to that. We have taken those priorities and we have owned them as well as the province. And colleagues, this little figure here, it just shows that we try as hard as possible to ensure integration at all levels, right down to a ward-based level, but also understanding that ward-based plans and IDPs, etc., they are very much operational. So one may not see direct things from those plans in the PGDS, but you will see an alignment. You will see that the PGDS does look at the DDM models, etc., and it also takes into account all the information that will come to us from each district. And of course, when districts start to develop their one plans, etc., they will ensure that they are aligned to the PGDS as well as the KZN MTSF. Colleagues, I think we can then move on to slide, let us go to slide 8. I think it's slide 16. And on slide 16, colleagues, I just want to reiterate the vision for the PGDS. And this is a vision that we should all know and we should all be living and breathing. And that is the vision for the PGDS is KwaZulu-Natal will be a prosperous province with a healthy, secure, and skilled population, living in dignity and harmony, acting as a gateway to Africa and the world. So just as a chair, just as a reminder, if we can then go to the next slide. So colleagues, very much as in any strategy that you would see, the outline of the PGDS on slide 17, it just shows, and the subsequent slides, what it does is it outlines what is contained in the PGDS and the various chapters within it. So we try to set the scene, and when we say set the scene, we are talking about KZN and our role in the country and our role in the world. And then we talk about our approach in terms of the PGDS, and we also look at international. As I was saying, we consider the relevant international and national policy context. And colleagues, again, our intention is not to replicate or duplicate those policies and those documents, but merely to ensure that they serve us as a point of reference so that we can build on that and say, for KZN, what are we going to be doing about this issue? Just to put it very simply. So in chapter 1, that's the introduction and the approach, and basically it provides a description of what we are looking at in chapter 1. And I'm not going to go through each and every point there, Chair. Moving on to slide 18. I'm not sure if I can't see it on the screen, and I'm not sure. Okay, so in slide 18, Chair, this is where we provide the story of KZN. So where we find ourselves. And when we're telling a story, it is always nice to back up our story with evidence. And that evidence is normally our statistics and our reference information. And here we would ask if there is anything that this district would like us to include that is relevant, and they have that information from credible sources, we would like them to please send that to us. And so in chapter 2 is really the strategic analysis. And if we can then move on to slide 19. Okay. Chair, here we just want to, in slide 19, we just want to talk about when one is undertaking a strategic analysis, one should, part of that analysis is outlining your key challenges, but to always remember, like I'm saying, that those challenges should be backed by evidence. So don't just make, and colleagues, I'm using a very broad example. Please don't shoot me, but I'm saying, don't just say there's no water. Tell the story of your district. How many people, how many households have water, how many have access to a standpipe, how many have piped water, etc., etc. So that is the story. And then you are backing your story with the credible evidence. And then based on that story, one can then design a plan that is sustainable and that and we hope that will be able in the long term to address these challenges that are being raised. If we can then move to the next slide, Chair, this is just a very brief outline of each chapter. And again, we're saying for each, what are the key issues that we need to take into account? They must be evidence-based and informed. They must respond to provincial challenges. The interventions that are being proposed, what is it that we need to do to address our challenges? In terms of the issues that we are trying to look at and in this case for our district, are we taking the vulnerable groups into account? And what are those proposed targets and indicators that the district would like us to look at? Chair, if we move on to the next slide. Here is where we're going to talk about chapter 3. And chapter 3 is what I call the crux of the strategy. This is where we are saying for each of the priority areas in our strategy, this is what we are proposing as our outcomes, and this is what we are proposing as the interventions. And Chair, if one has read the National MTSF, you will see that the PGDS, the KZN PGDS, is very much following the same template as that, so that we don't confuse people. We don't want people to say, "Oh, this priority is not the same as the national one. Where will I find it, etc." We're trying to make it as seamless and as understandable as possible for everybody. And again here, Chair, I just want to reiterate, here we are looking for the KZN context. So what we have done is we've taken the national issues, we've put it into the plan, and now we need to say, what are those KZN, what is our plan for KZN? And that's where we are at the moment. We're trying to develop that plan, and that is where we need the inputs from the colleagues. And if there are colleagues that are not just part of this district, but are part of AWGs, etc., we urge you to engage on these forums and give us that information. Chair, if we move on to the next slide, here we're just outlining some of the areas that are still lacking in terms of Chapter 3. And as you can see, there's quite a few areas. But again, we feel that by doing these engagements, we are going to be getting the correct information from the correct people on the ground. In terms of the next slide, Chair. Now, Chapter 4 talks about the provincial spatial development. And we all understand that, you know, the KZN PSDF is a work in progress. And we work very closely with COCTA and AWG 18 on this issue in the province and, of course, on this chapter. And I think what is very important in terms of this is the focus that we are not just saying, okay, this is who we are as a province, this is what we want to do in terms of each of these priority areas, but we are also wanting to say, yes, we want to do this, but more importantly, this is the area that we want to do this in. So we want to undertake X, Y, and Z intervention, but we've also identified spatially the areas that we want to work in. And I think colleagues, as a whole, as government, we are moving very much into this, into this focus area where we want to make sure that the service delivery is in the areas where they are most needed. And that is what this chapter is also looking at. And again, I don't want to read it word for word, but it's updating the what. We must also consider the where. So don't just say we need this in the district. Also maybe go further and say where in the district is this needed. And again, you are saying the where based on evidence. We are not just saying the where because we need to say the where, but we are saying the where because we understand the issues, we've undertaken studies, or we've done an analysis of our district, and we understand that this is where the most need is for this particular issue. Chair, if we can then move on to the next slide. And again, this is just a very brief overview, Chair, on slide 24 of just the remaining chapters and what each contain. Chapter 5 has the catalytic projects. Chapter 6 has the institutional framework for implementation, and Chapter 7 talks around the issues of M&E, which we also understand are very important issues. So, Chair, as I move towards closure of my presentation, I think, as I've mentioned throughout, where we are now is in the consultation phase. So we've done like a framework. We've put in as much information as we could that we could obtain from credible sources. And now we are consulting with stakeholders. We are saying, tell us what you would like us to include. Tell us why you want us to include it, and give us that information. Don't just say, I don't think you've covered water enough, but say, this is why I don't think it's done enough, and give us that supporting evidence. Chair, in terms of timeline, you can see we're working against a very tight time frame. So COVID-19 has affected all of us in different ways. And one of the ways is it has affected us, of course, for the PGDS is in terms of the development and the finalization. But we find ourselves here now, and we need to do the best that we can. So we are busy consulting, but we would like to have sent this final draft PGDS to the clusters, etc., for approval by the 31st of March of this year. So we're left with just a little less than 2 months. And then finally, Chair, I would like to say that the draft PGDS understandably is quite large and we can't email it, but it is available on the PPC website, and the website address is on the screen at the moment. On slide 26, and you can access the document there, and there is an online form that's available where you can provide your inputs. And of course, there's also an email address that can be used, which is pgdsreview@kznpremier.gov.za. I think, Chair, from our side, in terms of the presentation we had to do, I know it was very quick and we had to run through it very quickly due to time constraints, but I hope that we've covered everything. But we are now available to answer any questions or queries that any of the colleagues may have. Thank you, Chair.